Hey everyone, welcome to the English Debate Podcast, where language meets thought. I'm Chad.
And I'm Leslie. In this series, we dive deep into real-world dilemmas, helping you sharpen your English speaking, listening, and especially debating skills.
This episode's topic? One of the most polarizing life questions. Should people follow their passion or choose the practical path? It's a philosophical fault line, really. Do we live to survive, or do we strive to thrive?
A perfect topic for critical thinking and language development. Plus, we're using plenty of advanced vocabulary, so if you're aiming to sound more persuasive in English, you're in the right place.
And don't miss Section 2, where we'll break down some of today's most advanced expressions. So stay tuned if you want to sound like a natural in serious discussions.
Let's start by laying out our stances. Chad.
Thank you. I firmly believe that pursuing one's passion is not simply idealistic, it's essential. Passion is not a whimsical indulgence. It is the very force that sustains creativity, ambition, and personal fulfillment. When we subordinate our passions in favor of pure practicality, we risk living a life that is efficient but emotionally bankrupt.
A compelling view, but one that lacks consideration of systemic and personal realities. I argue that practicality is not the enemy of purpose. It is the architecture that enables it. In a world where economic uncertainty and rising living costs are everyday realities, prioritizing stability is not cowardice, it is wisdom. Passion without a viable structure is a fast track to frustration.
Let me ask you this. If everyone defaulted to practicality, how would innovation thrive? Artists, entrepreneurs, scientists, they all had to defy convention, take financial risks, and choose passion over predictability. History rewards those who dare, not those who simply comply.
True. But for every innovator who succeeded, there are countless who ended up disillusioned, financially strained, or entirely broken by their pursuit. Are we glorifying the few and ignoring the many? Responsibility to oneself and others often necessitates putting dreams on hold, or reshaping them within feasible limits.
But isn't that precisely the problem? Society frames dreams as luxuries rather than necessities. If we restructured systems to support people in pursuing meaningful work, maybe we wouldn't be so quick to dismiss passion as impractical.
Idealism is admirable, but policy doesn't shift overnight. Until then, individuals must navigate the world as it is, not as it should be.
Let's pivot to the psychological dimension. Numerous studies have linked job dissatisfaction to chronic stress, anxiety, even depression. People are not cogs in a machine. When work lacks meaning, the human spirit erodes.
I'm not disputing that. But passion alone doesn't guarantee satisfaction. In fact, monetizing one's passion can taint it. I've seen people turn what they love into work and slowly grow to resent it.
That's a fair challenge. But isn't the deeper issue lack of autonomy? If someone can maintain agency over their passion, it remains a source of empowerment. The goal is not just to follow passion blindly, but to integrate it meaningfully into one's life.
Let me give you a concrete example. A friend of mine was a gifted musician. He turned his love of composing into freelance work, thinking it would be fulfilling. But deadlines, inconsistent income, and client demands quickly drained his joy. He now teaches part-time music while working in IT for stability. Passion remains a part of his life, but not at the cost of his mental health.
And yet, I'd argue that his case reflects compromise, not failure. He didn't abandon music. He redefined what passion looks like for him. That's the point. Passion may evolve, but it still deserves a central seat in life.
Here's where I take the conversation further. The luxury of following your passion is often reserved for the socioeconomically privileged. For many, the choice isn't between passion and practicality, it's survival. That reality needs to be acknowledged.
I agree, and it's a critical point. But doesn't that make it even more important to challenge the status quo? If we only ever encourage the privileged to pursue passion, and push everyone else towards safe, practical roles, we reinforce inequality.
But challenging the system doesn't happen overnight. A first-generation college student, for instance, might feel pressure to enter a high-paying, stable field, not because they lack passion, but because their family's well-being depends on it. We can't ignore that kind of context.
Absolutely. But perhaps we should empower people to build a hybrid model, a path where financial responsibility and meaningful work can coexist. Take social entrepreneurs or community educators. They blend purpose with practicality in creative ways.
Yes, and I think that's a more honest solution, moving away from the either-or mindset and encouraging strategic flexibility.
To reduce life to a calculation of risks and returns is, in my view, a disservice to our potential. Passion, tempered with responsibility, can illuminate a path not only to success but to significance.
And to ignore the realities of the world we live in, to undervalue structure, planning, and realism, is to invite chaos. Passion should be pursued, yes, but it must be built on a foundation strong enough to support it.
Final reflection. If you had no financial limitations, would you live the same life?
Honestly, probably not. But isn't that the very definition of privilege, the ability to choose based on want rather than need?
Then maybe the goal is not to tell people what to choose, but to create a world where more people can choose.
Now it's time for Section 2, where we break down some of the advanced vocabulary from today's discussion.
That's right. These expressions help add precision and nuance to your arguments, something every advanced speaker should aim for. Ready, Leslie?
Let's go. You kick things off.
All right, first one, philosophical fault line. I use this to describe the deep divide between people who follow passion versus those who prioritize practicality. It basically refers to a major ideological split, like an invisible crack in how people view the world.
Nice. Can you use it in a different context?
Sure. The debate over artificial intelligence ethics exposes a serious philosophical fault line between innovation and responsibility.
My turn. I said whimsical indulgence when talking about how some people see passion as something impractical or impulsive. It just means a playful or carefree act, often not taken seriously.
Like eating cake for breakfast?
Exactly. Buying a vintage typewriter was a whimsical indulgence, but it makes writing feel magical again.
I used emotionally bankrupt to describe a life that might be financially stable, but totally drained of meaning. It's a metaphor for feeling emotionally empty or unfulfilled.
Oof, that hits hard.
Tell me about it. Here's an example. After working 80-hour weeks for years, he was successful but emotionally bankrupt.
Next one, viable structure. I argued that passion needs a viable structure to succeed. That means a framework that actually works in real life.
So, it's not just about dreams, it's about building something that can stand.
Exactly. The proposal sounded exciting, but without a viable structure, the investors walked away.
I brought up people feeling financially strained, which just means under financial pressure or stress. For example, after paying medical bills out of pocket, the family was financially strained for months.
I mentioned a feasible limit when discussing how people sometimes reshape their dreams within realistic boundaries. It just means a practical or manageable boundary.
So like setting a reasonable goal.
Right. For example, let's keep the project within a feasible limit, no more than 10 pages.
One phrase I used was lack of autonomy, especially when discussing mental well-being. That means not having the freedom to make your own choices. Here's a quick example. Many students felt frustrated by the lack of autonomy in choosing their electives.
And the last one, socioeconomically privileged. It refers to people who have advantages because of their wealth, education, or social class. Here's one example. Unpaid internships often benefit the socioeconomically privileged, who can afford to work for free.
8 solid phrases. Not just great for debate, but useful in real conversations too.
Agreed. Try using just 1 or 2 of these in your next discussion and see how much sharper your English sounds.
Thanks for tuning in to the English Debate Podcast. Whether you lean passionate or practical, we hope today's conversation pushed your thinking and your vocabulary.
Until then, keep learning, keep questioning.